Imagine waking up every morning in a place where time seems to have stopped. No honking cars, no towering buildings, no screens everywhere, just you and the distant sound of cowbells echoing among eternal mountains. This is how life begins in a tiny hidden corner of the Swiss Alps. A village so isolated that for many, it doesn't even appear on the map. But for those who have chosen to stay, this place is everything. Here, amidst imposing mountains, thick fog, and winding paths along silent abysses, a different life exists. A life that doesn't rush, that doesn't compete, that simply is. But don't be mistaken, this isn't a comfortable paradise. Here, isolation isn't romantic, it's real. There's snow, cold, and solitude, but there's also beauty, a beauty that only reveals itself to those who dare to stay. Prepare to be transported to a world unlike any other, where modern life is stripped away, revealing profound truths about community, resilience, and the human spirit. Stay with us till the very end to glimpse a life lived on nature's terms. Welcome to Young Curiosity, where we unravel the mysteries that shape our world. If you're fascinated by unique cultures and incredible human adaptability, you're in the right place. Please take a moment to smash that like button, subscribe to Young Curiosity for more mind-bending insights, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring these incredible topics to life. The most remote villages in Switzerland are not easy to find. They are hidden between deep valleys, inaccessible plateaus, or slopes so steep they defy logic. Reaching one of them can be quite a journey. You might ascend on old cable cars, cross narrow roads carved into cliffs, or walk for hours on trails that seem to have no end. And when winter arrives, everything changes. The routes freeze, passage becomes dangerous, and in many cases, impossible. Snow covers the paths, signs disappear, and the silence becomes thick, almost solid. But where the modern world stops, life continues at a different pace, with different rules. The people who live in these places don't do so by accident. It's not a coincidence. It's a conscious choice. And that choice speaks volumes about a strength very different from what we celebrate in big cities. Living here means understanding that not everything revolves around the clock, Wi-Fi, or traffic. Here, the mountain rules, the season rules, the cold rules, and so does the heart. Each village has its own dynamic, but in all of them there's a common thread, the profound connection to the land. Families survive on what they cultivate, what they raise, and what they produce with their own hands. Artisan cheese, smoked meat, bread baked with firewood, homemade preserves, nothing is wasted here. Every food has a history, and every history is shared within the community, because community is everything. In villages where only a few dozen people live, mutual support isn't an option. It's an absolute necessity. If a neighbor falls ill, the rest mobilize. If someone needs help shoveling snow off their roof, you just have to look out the window. There's always someone willing to lend a hand. It's a lifestyle where every person counts, where bonds aren't virtual but real, cultivated with time, presence, and care. Children grow up running through meadows, helping feed animals, or bringing water from the spring. From a young age, they learn to care, to observe, to listen to nature. Some attend small local schools, others have to travel for hours each day to attend classes in neighboring towns, but all, without exception, know how to survive and also how to enjoy the silence, because here silence isn't empty, it's company. On quiet days, many simply sit by the window, gazing at the mountains, listening to the wind, remembering, giving thanks. Living in an alpine village isn't just about surviving isolation, it's about transforming it into something valuable. Some say this way of life is disappearing, but just spending a couple of days in one of these villages shows you that's not the case. There are still people who prefer the authentic to the comfortable, the profound to the immediate. What do you value more, convenience or connection to nature? Let us know. Just when you start to fall in love with that peace, winter arrives. The first snows are not a surprise. They are expected, felt coming, prepared for weeks in advance. Firewood is cut, provisions are stored, generators are checked. Each house transforms into a warm fortress, ready to withstand what's to come. But even so, winter strikes hard. Temperatures drop lower than you thought possible. Ice forms in places you never imagined. Windows sweat indoors, doors creak, fireplaces become the heart of the home, and isolation becomes total. Some villages lose communication for days, unable to leave or receive anything from the outside. In those moments, self-sufficiency ceases to be a pretty idea and becomes an urgent reality. But that's where what's unseen from the outside truly shines. It's in the midst of that difficulty that the best of these communities emerges. The neighbor who shares bread when there's no flour left, the elderly woman who weaves blankets for the village children, the young man who goes out in the middle of a storm to check that the elder on the hillside still has heating. There are no heroes, just people who understand that here, if one falls, everyone falls, and so they support each other, protect each other, embrace each other with actions. During those months, the outside world seems like another planet. While the rest of the world maintains its frantic pace, everything here slows down, and that deceleration is an act of resistance, a way of saying, there is still another way to live, one that is more human, more connected, more present. And as the snow falls and the fire crackles, the days are filled with small things, repairing tools, sewing, reading, cooking as a family, rediscovering the essentials, rediscovering themselves. Because although winter is harsh, it is also beautiful. The mountains are covered in white, the trees are dressed in frost, and the sky seems clearer than ever. And when you look around, you understand why these people choose to stay. As winter begins to recede, everything in the village slowly changes. Ice paths open through the snow, chimneys go unlit for longer, and the sun, though timid, becomes more generous. It's as if the world is waking from a long sleep, but here, there's no rush. Spring arrives at its own pace, and the inhabitants understand and respect it. The routine begins to move outdoors. Children run again through the wet pastures, animals leave their stables, and the fields are prepared for the new cycle. Everything is done with hands, with the body, with that energy that only direct contact with the earth provides. There are no large machines, no noise, no crowds, just the sound of running water, birds singing again, and boots marking the damp ground. It's nature itself saying, "I'm still here," and the community replying, "So are we." It is during this season that many of these villages receive curious travelers who want to experience this different way of life. Some arrive by bicycle, others walking along trails. Many stay only for a few hours, but those who manage to see beyond the picturesque landscape take something away that cannot be bought or photographed. The feeling that here, life is still lived with meaning. And beyond the folklore, the postcards, and the quaintness, these villages possess something not easily found, a real balance between tradition and present. Because although they seem frozen in time, many have integrated modernity, but on their own terms. Some houses now have solar panels discreetly installed on their roofs, small antennas bring satellite internet, and a few families have access to online services. But that hasn't changed the essence of life here. It has only made it a little easier to continue. The difference is that technology doesn't rule. It merely accompanies. Here, people don't rush to get the latest cell phone model. They value a sharp knife more than a perfectly edited selfie. The most important connection isn't with the network, but with the environment and with each other. Many young people who previously moved to the city have begun to return, some tired of the artificial pace of the urban world, others driven by a deep desire to reclaim what they once disdained, the stories, the flavors, the rituals they grew up with. Now they return with new ideas, with different tools. They create responsible tourism businesses, sell artisan cheeses online, or teach others to value this lifestyle. But not everything is so simple, because living here also has its harsh side. There are moments of loneliness, doubt, and exhaustion. There are days when the weather stops everything, when, at Cape, emergency call is slow to arrive, when isolation becomes agonizing. But even those moments teach. They teach that life is not a straight line, but a cycle, and that learning to move with that cycle is what gives it meaning. Swiss villages don't have large shopping malls, cinemas, or brightly lit avenues, but they have small squares where people sing, kitchens where generations gather, and fields where silence heals what the city sickens. They have time, they have patience, they have stories that don't make the news but cut deeper than any headline. One such story is that of Mrs. Liesel, a woman who has lived her entire life in one of these villages. She is over 80 years old and still lights her wood-fired oven every morning to bake bread. Every loaf she bakes is for someone, a neighbor, a grandchild, a walker who arrives unannounced. She says the secret to the dough is not to rush, just like life here. She smiles. Or the story of Hans, a young man who returned after studying engineering. In Zurich. He could be working in an air-conditioned office with a fixed salary, but he chose to come back. Today he teaches the village children about renewable energy using local examples. He has installed a small composting system, and with his old laptop and satellite connection, he sells self-sufficiency manuals to other remote villages in Europe. These are not exceptions. They are part of a community that understands that living well is not about having much, but about needing little. Here, days are not filled with notifications. They are filled with real sounds. Wood creaking, wind creeping through cracks, footsteps on the snow, voices greeting each other in the morning. Everything sounds different. Everything tastes different. And in a world saturated with noise, that is a luxury that cannot be bought. While the rest of the world seeks speed, here life becomes profound, not by what is possessed, but by how it is lived. The seasons mark the calendar, the mountains teach. Patience in the community reminds us that no one saves themselves alone. In times when everything seems accelerated, chaotic, digitalized, these isolated Swiss villages silently shout that there is another way, that one can still live with feet on the ground, gaze on the horizon, and heart at peace. And that's why those who live here are not running from the world. They are choosing a different world. Slower, yes. Harder, too. But profoundly human. So the next time you hear about Switzerland, don't just think of watches, chocolate, or punctual trains. Think of these villages, these faces weathered by the cold, these hands that still sew, still heal, still build community. Because in the most remote places, sometimes the most essential things are found. If you made it this far, it's because you enjoyed this video.